What do you think is the future of polymathy? I am wondering why we no longer hear of famous or influential polymaths. Do you think there will be more polymaths in the future, or will we go extinct? Polymaths definitely still exist. There are a multitude of reasons that we don't hear more about them. I'd argue that the primary reason we don't is the time and need for specialization within a discipline. In the past, you could spend a year or two studying intensely and be in a position to make meaningful contributions across the field. Nowadays, 5 to 15 years focused study isn't unreasonable to reach the peak of a field. I think that there are a few things in favor of polymathy going forward. A lot of the easy wins have been claimed in science. A significant amount of new breakthroughs are being made by multidisciplinary teams. An individual who is able to operate at a high, but not expert, level in disparate fields may be able to find novel solutions not available to overly specialized individuals. Additionally, as AI develops, it seems possible that specialist knowledge will become accessible via AI systems, meaning that a breadth-focused knowledge base may be more useful in problem solving. I think the term has fallen out of the common lexicon. I've mentioned this to people, and fairly often people have never heard of it and think it means you're really good at math. I think it's actually more common amongst millennials/zoomers to have your hands in a variety of pies, so to speak. I'm millennial, lots of people in my generation and the one after me basically grew up doing a variety of things, between being on multiple social media platforms, being gamers, and sometimes streamers, being on Instagram/TikTok, so learning content creation, which itself is a polymathic skill. Like, honestly, the way the world is set up and the tools at our disposal now, it's easier than ever to multitask. But yeah, I think polymath is just not used as commonly. It seems to be more Jack/Jill of many trades, or generalist or Renaissance person. There is also multipotentialite, but that term was created by one specific person as part of their brand and the community they created. It didn't get as big/common as the other three terms above. I'm a Jill of many trades, and I actually started doing a podcast to interview other people who do different things/have a variety of interests. I'm hoping to bring more awareness to the fact that when people tell you that you have to pick something, they're not necessarily right, and to show that society absolutely needs and benefits from having generalists. Sure, we need doctors and engineers and such, but we also need artists and creators. It's also interesting to see how much neurodivergence plays into it, as I've interviewed several fellow neurodiverse people, and it seems to be a big part of what fuels us, but at the same time it's not to say that neurotypical people can't also be generalists. Well, polymathy will definitely live on. To be a polymath is to master a variety of different subjects. Jack of all trades? Well, the way I hear it from this question is that you are thinking more of the label or title of polymath rather than what we as polymaths want and do, wanting to master everything. What I mean by this is that we as humans change. Like a lot, we go through phases. We watch different TV shows because of the boredom of the other ones. We change what food we like. We aren't meant to stay the same consistently, so even if the word polymath is unknown years later, it will still live on, because eventually there will be that one person, 2 people, 30 people who will change careers or change hobbies and learn different languages and gain skills of a vast amount. The way I think about it is that humans did not create polymathy, but the psychological effects of our DNA that has created one in change has created polymathy. Other people have already talked about how academia has advanced enough that it's harder to be holistic. I'll talk about other aspects. This century is both a great time to be a polymath and a subpar one. On one hand, becoming a monster of erudition is a lot more accessible without a lot of wealth. Learning materials are cheap, if not in many ways free. On the other hand, we live in a world that fails to value certain things the second millennium polymaths did. The Renaissance viewed existence and knowledge of existence as an organic, animate being. These polymaths valued building networks of knowledge, collaborating with competent fellows, and illuminating the deeper, fundamental beauty and poetry of God's creation. At the same time, they were particularly committed to rationality and propriety. Contrast this with trends in today's age, which stand on these giants, yet embrace different values. Where existence is seen more as a dull machine. Specialties are more tribal, practically developing their own cants to insulate themselves further. Their official party line is that God, beauty, and propriety are dead, and the only poetry is finding new ways to express this point further. There is a strong, growing undercurrent of emotionalism that runs through a lot of academia today. Often they lack both the innate will of polymathy and the methods. The future of polymathy belongs to those with the longest memory. Plus, advice request, for an aspiring polymath. So last year I came across the Da Vinci principles, and since then, have discovered the idea of Renaissance person. But only recently have I realized what it means exactly. Thinking back, I realized that I have always been frowned upon for jumping between interests. That got to me, and I tried focusing on only one thing, but I couldn't. I thought something was wrong with me for so long. That, combined with ADHD, I could not really focus for long periods of time on one thing and kinda messed up my life and happiness. Now that I have realized what being a polymath is, I want to be able to reclaim my creative self back, and dive deeper into the subjects that I'm passionate about. I have felt true happiness and satisfaction only when I learn things I am passionate about organically. So I would like some advice/resources/tips/suggestions from polymaths on my journey to realizing and understanding myself. The topics I am interested in at the moment are graphic design, character design, photography, fitness, coding, tech, science, mainly physics, dramatics, poetry, writing, philosophy. Would love to be able to interact with some polymath smiles. Make connections between the tangible and abstract. Alternate but ensure you focus on deeper understanding through observation and examination. Discuss, share, and teach. Ask questions and be deliberate in what you study. Plan it out in advance and practice what you learn, experiment. My advice is don't confuse organically for sporadically. I used to think that approaching things methodically would kill my enthusiasm, or make things feel like school. It went totally against my preconceived notions of the inspired genius. But in the end, mastery of anything takes discipline, and personally, I think agency and independence is enough to keep things much more than fun than school was. Other people here seem to have mentioned this, but seriously aspiring to become a polymath often requires a lifestyle change. Reading the book Atomic Habits last year was pretty life-changing for me. Doing just a little bit of the main fields you're interested in every day really works, and I think should be accommodating of your ADHD. I have a habit tracker to make sure that every day I try to do language learning, music practice, design practice, art practice, and exercise, which will hopefully transition into taking up a new sport when quarantine gets better. Start slow, maybe just one habit a day, at first. Of course I skip days here and there, and it's important not to be too hard on yourself. But understand that, unlike the polymaths of Renaissance days, we live in a much faster-paced society today that spreads us thin and is full of many distractions, so it will be necessary for you to be at least a little systematic about your journey to becoming a polymath. Plus, how do you schedule in all your interests? Personally, after this past year I think I've mastered evenly distributing time to pursue all my passions, art, music, sci-fi writing, online teaching, while also getting consistent exercise, sleep, and even a little downtime to zone out with video games. Last year I drew 79 portraits, released 6 songs, wrote 28k words for novels, and made 3 online courses. As of now, I keep a small pocket planner with small goals at regular intervals that add up to long-term achievements. I also have a 5-year plan vision board on my office wall, weekly goals on my computer, but in extreme cases, have literally worn my to-do list as a necklace to keep myself accountable and build good habits. How do you guys make it all work? Or do you focus on one interest at a time and I'm just crazy? Lol. I use a bullet journal. I write my goals every beginning of year, eliminate the ones I don't want by March or add some and continue the planned daily schedule. I don't always follow it, but for most part try to complete at least 3 things related to each interest per day. Some years I do more than expected, other years less. This is really encouraging to read. I've consistently had a hard time with scheduling all of my interests. I'm slowly getting better, but with the high amounts of people telling me that I am doing too many things, it can get discouraging. So it really helps to see someone who is successful in what I am trying to do smile. I look forward to the day when I can actually master it, evenly partitioning my time so I can do everything I love. Right now, I use a Trello board for each week, following a general scheduling template that changes maybe 3 to 4 times a year based on my needs. I try to follow the principle of an autopilot schedule, where I schedule regular practice in my areas of interest: computer programming, art, creative writing, music, math, theme park design, at the same time each day/week, so I'm more likely to actually do it. Plus I try to exercise at the same time each morning, and sleep 7 to 8 hours per night. With some time left over for games, shows, movies, internet, reading, etc. on the weekends. I've seen improvement through this method, though not quite to the level I'm aiming for. The idea is that if I make time for something and do it consistently, then I can start adjusting my learning methods to progress more efficiently. I hope to start achieving your levels of progress this year. Mainly, I hope to stop piddling around with endless tutorials and beginner stuff and actually focus on 1, gaining mastery of each skill, and 2, bringing projects to completion.